Hello, my name is Ariel Starbird. Today is May 26, 2023. I have with me today A from New York City. She's 31 years old, and she has been in the holistic health and fitness coaching program for about 10 months. So A, how are you doing today?
I am good. It is Friday, ready for a long weekend, so can't complain.
Me too. So I would love to first for you to share what health issues were you experiencing prior to starting the program. And I know you kind of have a long history of various things. So I of course would love to hear more in depth of what you've been dealing with, the deeper picture, but share what you feel comfortable sharing about that.
Definitely. So there were a good handful of things that prompted me to originally reach out to you. A big one physically, and it'll span kind of like physical, emotional, mental, and all of that. But physically, since my teenage years, I have been dealing with arthritis, and I was diagnosed as a teenager, which was um, its own challenge and deeply, deeply painful, as well as needing to completely redefine my understanding of my physical abilities and quality of life, and just what all of that meant for the rest of my life, and what my goals were and dreams were, and everything. So physically, it had been kind of this on and off over the course of something like 15 years of some periods I felt better than others. I was fortunate to have at least some periods of time where I was in a medicated remission. I was never in a position where I was totally off of medication. But I had, medicated remissions. But prior to, starting the program, I was in a flare for approximately 2 years that just would not go away. And so that kind of brings me to some of the other aspects, emotional and mental, that I think actually contributed to that flare and its persistence, which was I was dealing with a considerable amount of the complex PTSD, as a result of a couple of traumatic things that happened over a sustained period of time, especially in my early 20s. So the physical toll of dealing with trauma, I think, was tremendous. And of course, the emotional aspects of that as well, and mental aspects. I mean, it affected, the way that I perceived the world. Everything felt dangerous. I felt I could not trust myself or my gut and my judgment about people, or, just everything was perceived to me as a threat. And it was very isolating. And I felt like my sense of self was very diminished. I felt very, very disconnected from my sense of self, completely disconnected from my body. Really, the only thing that was connecting me to my body was pain. It was not, it was not enjoyable, to say the least. And, at the same time, over the course of the pandemic, I mean, I think that was isolating in and of itself, but dealing with, the physical components that really felt like a disability. I mean, it really was a disability, as well as dealing with this really lonely emotional experience of trauma, that other people just can't understand unless they experience it themselves. And I'm happy for that. Like I don't want others to experience it, but me experiencing it, it was very, very isolating and very, very lonely. So that was very significant. And at the same time, there were other external sources of tremendous and chronic stress that I was experiencing. And that was related to relationship I was in at the time, some circumstantial aspects as to where I was living. I didn't really feel I had a home base. I was kind of bopping all over the place. And part of that was for work and my career and school. By the time I reached out to you, I pretty much just reached a point where nothing was working. I felt really desperate to just feel better. And I had worked already so hard to, you know, find ways of overcoming and healing from I mean, all of the things that I just described, but it was, all of those efforts that I had made were really based in the traditional Western medicine, medical, psychological frameworks and institutions, and it just wasn't working. I gained a lot. There were elements that really did work for me. I reached a point where it was requiring more effort on my part, a lot of patience and waiting and hoping that something would get better. And I just felt stuck, and I just realized that everything I was doing, I was proud of what I had accomplished, but it wasn't enough anymore. And I just needed to try something different. And I guess, to build on that a little bit more and get into some of the spiritual side of things, when I was diagnosed as a teenager with arthritis, I had to give up dancing. And for me, dancing was everything. It was all I wanted to do. It was how I expressed myself as a child and processed the world. And I learned so many useful skills, but it was really such a fulfilling thing to my soul. And when I had to give that up, it just felt like I lost everything. And I've always said that I felt like part of me died that day that I had to give it up, that day that I, got my diagnosis. And another aspect, and when you and I first spoke, you kind of identified that as like, oh, that's what we need to do. That's what, we're going to work on everything else, but we're going to get that part of your soul back and, and find that again. And that's something that, over the last 10 months has become increasingly possible in my mind as I've, been feeling better and gaining confidence and all of that. So yeah, I hope that kind of provides like a comprehensive
That's very, very
picture.
good. Yes, I remember the very first consultation we had. I think at that time, your focus was you wanted to mainly you really wanted to improve your performance in your career. You wanted to apply for a PhD program. You wanted to do really well with that, and I very much support that. Of course, that's great. But you didn't at that time have any even an idea that you could dance one day. And when I suggested to you, it was like totally like, really? Do you really think I could? Like, yeah, yeah, I know you could. It's a matter of getting there. And I think at that time, I don't know if you believed me or not initially. I already saw the vision, like like an insight. I knew that you could. Then it was just a matter of figuring out the steps. So I don't think initially you fully believed it, but I think you trusted my insight enough that you were willing to entertain it, and you didn't feel like it was getting your hopes up. You felt like, well, maybe this could work. Let's try this. And then over maybe 6 months, there's been just this such massive reduction in pain that it became a lot more about, oh, actually, I can see how it is possible. If I don't have any pain anymore and I can actually do the physical part of it, the rest is up to me, right? Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And I think also importantly, not having pain has improved my quality of life just all around. And certainly without that reduction in pain, it would be very difficult to actually envision myself dancing again. But a really crucial part of that has been the emotional and like spiritual healing from that loss, because like you said, like not only did I never thought that was possible for me to dance again. And I think realistically, I don't know that I'll be able to dance ballet in the same way again. Maybe I'm just not there in terms of seeing that possibility, and that'll come later, just as how I'm feeling now has since we started last year. The aspect of freeing my emotions and soul from that really, really painful loss, and like retrieving the part of my like child soul that just felt absolute joy and freedom in dance. Without that component, I don't see how I could be thinking of dancing again, because it was just too painful before. I mean, it felt physically impossible, but it was just really emotionally painful to even think about it, because it felt like I would never ever be the same. as it was. And I think now I'm really interested in redefining it for myself as an adult with much more life experience, but finding a way to just naturally get that same fulfillment that I did when I was a kid.
That makes so much sense to me. So it gives, our listeners such a good picture of, what you were really going through. And there are so many other people I know when they're going to hear this, they're going to identify. They went through something similar, whether it was arthritis or some other autoimmune. Some people have a whole plethora of autoimmune things like I did, and no one can explain it, and the conventional system doesn't have answers, and you're just on your own, and you're like in this desert on your own. And so you have to have like either an iron will or a strong heart or sort of a very bulldogish nature or all of the above to just keep going when it seems like there's a like anything you try to do when you're in pain all the time, anything you try to do is like a brick wall. Can you just speak a little bit to that? What kept you going even though there really weren't answers? And there was absolutely zero guarantee that you could ever recover. But obviously you kept going and you eventually found me. So what was that?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me think about that for a second. I think there are a couple of things. I think largely it's my personality. Even when I was a kid, I remember asking my mom, I think I must have been like 10 years old. And I found her and I asked her, when do you figure out who you are? And especially with ballet and, dance in general, but definitely with ballet, I mean, the amount of discipline that I learned through that and persistence and curiosity, and I think all of those things are partly my personality, which is why I was drawn to it. But, the experience of dancing ballet really, really ingrained those things in me. And so, those things are all really important. And I think the other element that is critical is just having belief that it can get better. Because without the belief that it can get better, it feels just really pointless to even try. And so I think all of those things, my desire to discover who I am, just enjoying having discipline and putting in effort and just being continually curious about, and checking in with myself and all of these things. I think those were all really important for me to continue on. And, like I said, I mean, I worked really hard. I've been in therapy for, a decade. And especially when I started, really struggling with the PTSD stuff, I stepped that up so much and I put in so much effort and it really paid off, but I reached a wall. And it was the same thing with my arthritis treatment. I grew up in a very science-oriented household and I am in a STEM career now, and I consider myself quite medically literate. So I had so much belief in Western medicine and its ability to heal me that, I have just been kind of in that cog for a long time, over a decade. And it just became really apparent to me that it stopped working. And so I think all of those things, returning to belief, I think belief is what changed in terms of my belief in that system. But my belief that it could get better hasn't changed. And I think that's also what's helped to make me successful with this is, you have to take a chance at some point. And I took chance in other, alternatives and needed to try something different.
Excellent. So you mentioned that it's, you've been doing therapy for about a decade and you were diagnosed with the arthritis when you were a teenager. So it's quite a long time ago. And was there anything else other than the conventional medical system and the therapy? Was there anything else you were doing, any kind of program that you were doing in order to solve those problems?
No, no. With therapy, I had been in and out of like physical therapy over the years, but it had been a while since I was doing that. And then I guess with therapy, there were specific types of therapy that I was doing. So you might consider that a program. So, traditionally there's like psychotherapy, which is just talk therapy. There's cognitive behavioral therapy, which is learning skills to reframe how you think about things. So like anxiety, for example, like you can CBT skills would be like, well, let me actually work through what's the worst that could happen. And then is that really realistic, et cetera, et cetera. And then I was also doing dialectical behavioral therapy, which is all about relating to other people and learning to like self-regulate my emotions. And so, I mean, doing all of that, like I've said, I got a lot out of that, but it was a lot of work. And I just got tired of work. I was like, it shouldn't be this hard to just exist and not, yeah, to just exist and like live a life that feels exciting and good to me.
Makes total sense to me. And so at that time, you were not doing physical fitness because you couldn't, because of the pain, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I was exercising when I could, and actually over the course of the pandemic, when, there was nothing better to do, I was exercising quite a bit, but I was not in any sort of program. Like there was no one holding me accountable other than myself. And if I was feeling not my best, it was kind of difficult to say, oh yeah, let me move today because I'm in pain, but moving, at least somewhat might help. It's just easier to sit in that pain, especially when, I'm feeling emotionally weighed down by everything else.
Gotcha. So you did some exercise, but you were very limited by the pain. So, so you just kind of did whatever you could, and some days you couldn't, so you just didn't, right?
Exactly.
And you were not like consuming any sort of supplements or any kind of herbs or anything like that. You were just taking the medications.
No, just taking medications. I mean, I wasn't even really doing like tea. It was very, very just focused on these synthetic pharmaceuticals.
Gotcha. Yes, and of course, with what this program offers, it's all natural. There's nothing synthetic, and that's kind
Right.
of the point.
Right.
And
Yeah, and actually, to that point, I've been able to get off of a couple of medications and go down on other medications since starting this program.
yeah, that's amazing that you can do that. Some people are so afraid. Like I've had other clients and they've been on medications for 50, 60 years. They don't remember what it was like when they were not on medication. They're so afraid, but it's so easy. Like when you don't need it, because the idea is, well, once you're healthy, you don't need it. It's like, oh, well, yeah, actually, that's true. If I'm healthy, then I don't need it anymore. It's like, right. So exercise, lose weight, eat healthy. You're going to get healthy, and then you don't need them anymore. It's like a paradox. Like they wake up out of some kind of program. It's like, oh yeah, actually, yeah, that's the goal. The goal is to be healthy. you know.
Yeah, and actually, I think it's also that, I mean, I have found that in order to get healthy, I've actually had to get off of some medications. It's
Hmm.
like those medications were actually preventing my health
Hmm.
and making me feel worse. So there's that as well. It's kind of like, in terms of belief and taking chance, like I've taken a chance on going down on some of these medications because I'm like, I don't know, is it worth it? But yeah, it's been worth it. And it's like, I can stop taking it. And then if, I wasn't quite ready, in terms of going at my own pace and everything, I could just start taking them again. It's not a big deal. But going down and stopping medication, I mean, it's been great. I feel so much better in a lot of ways.
And so, what has been the most beneficial part of the holistic health and fitness coaching program? The reason I would love for you to share that is because, it is holistic. So it involves spiritual health, mental health, physical health, and emotional health, all of those things. And they're just, for different people, they're in slightly different priority list. But the reason people want a holistic program is because all those things matter to them. But what would you say has been the biggest benefit for you?
I feel extremely grounded and confident in myself. And, I mean, certainly in terms of some tangible things, my pain is significantly reduced. I got off one of my arthritis medications that I have been on for a long time, and I feel better for being off of it. And, all the supplements and like the protocol that we're doing has been great. I don't see how I would have been able to accomplish that without everything that we've been doing. In terms of the emotional, mental, spiritual, and all of that, I mean, I just feel like I've been able to let go of things that were weighing me down in all those ways. And it's different than my experience in therapy, where I worked through a lot of things in therapy, but it took work and it took a lot of like thinking about it and things like that. And I found that, some of the work that we've done with like soul retrieval and some of these other things, I've just been able to let it go. Like, we have that experience and I gain a lot of insight and I make a note of it. And then it's just gone and I just feel lighter. That's also, I mean, been amazing. And sometimes I think like, wow, maybe should I be thinking about that more? And then I think, no, the whole point is to not think about it anymore and to just like be free of it. And so, because of those things and just going back to feeling grounding and confident in myself, I feel like I am uncovering me. Like I'm no longer being shrouded by these other things that feel kind of external to me. And so I'm finding that I can just kind of, I'm hearing my own voice for the first time of things that I want and things that I believe, that aren't what society or other people are telling me to believe or think or anything like that. And and as a result, I've been able to make a lot of really excellent life decisions that feel very true to me and have made me much happier. And and also just for grounding, like the protocol that you and I have worked on has really come to work for me. Like at first it's really difficult to transition from, my habits before in terms of diet and lifestyle and some of these other things. But as I've gotten, as I have been feeling increasingly better and more confident in my ability to feel better and to, stick with the protocol, it's become so easy to stick with it. And so I feel very grounded in my choices and in my lifestyle and the protocol that, for example, like drinking alcohol. I mean, at my age, it's something that a lot of people like to do. And I liked to drink alcohol before as well. And so that was kind of a difficult thing for me to say, oh, maybe I can't do that anymore. And I stumbled a couple times because peer pressure or just being around it. But I reached a point where actually, no, it doesn't make me feel good. And I know I can feel good. And so I don't need to do that anymore. And it hasn't inhibited my life at all. It's only made it better. So yeah, I think the grounding is really key for me. And it's just a result of all these things put together.
That's awesome. And I would say regarding anything like alcohol or recreational drugs in general, when people are seeking that toxic experience and they're deluded that it's helping them somehow, then they're okay with how awful they feel. But when you reach a level of maturity where you realize that you're not wanting the toxic experiences anymore, it's very easy to let go of those things.
Totally.
Yeah. Awesome. So what is the most important thing you would say you learned in the program that you're applying now in your life, in your overall life?
I would say I've really learned that I can, as well as how to take control of and make decisions about my own health care, for lack of a better word, maybe. But like before, like I said, I consider myself very medically literate. And so, especially because I've been dealing with a chronic health issue, disability for a long time since I was an adolescent, I've been very involved in my medical care for a long time. And I found doctors that, I feel comfortable with and who accommodate my, my wants and all of that. But I only felt that I could do that within that Western framework. And since starting the program, like I've had to unlearn a lot of things that were taught in Western medicine about like what's good for you, what's bad for you, what works and what doesn't work and all of these things. And so that unlearning has been a real challenge, but also really cool. Like, I mean, I'm also very curious. And so I've done a lot of research as we've been working together and just think it's all so cool. So I think just learning how to take charge of my health and how I accomplish that in different ways than I've been taught to in the past, that just ties back to a lot of that confidence that I feel in myself and my ability to make decisions that are good for me.
Makes total sense to me. That's what a lot of people say, that it was very important for them to learn how to actually the self-care part of it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you do it yourself, but it's a much more advanced thing than if they like picked up a book and try to just figure it out all on their own is totally different. Yeah, like
Definitely.
being coached in a program. What would you say is the main way that this program has changed your life?
It's it sounds really cheesy, but I'm really excited to like wake up in the morning. I feel like before every day that I would wake up just felt horrible. Like I just didn't, it was just like, oh, another struggle, I feel horrible. I don't want to get out of bed. The thought of having to work and use my brain when I just feel fatigued and exhausted and just everything and stressed and all of that. It's like the complete opposite now, where I get excited about the next day. And I like waking up early, apparently. So I've been doing that for a while. I just feel capable. And so, I mean, there are still days where my alarm goes off and I'm like, ouch. I don't want to get up, but I'm not in the same amount of pain. My brain works again. I feel really happy with a lot of the life choices I've made recently, and just feel good about starting my day every day, and like having confidence that I'm going to have a good day. And if I can tell that maybe I'm not going to have the best day, I also know that tomorrow will be better. So I think it sounds really cheesy, but just genuinely, like, my day-to-day enjoyment of life is light years beyond where it was.
That's awesome. And how would you
Yeah.
say your day-to-day lifestyle and routines have changed from before to now?
I would say my routines are very deliberate now. So before, when it was kind of like, oh, I don't want to get up today, I had a routine, right? I mean, I would kind of do the same thing every day, but it was just going through the motions of like, oh, I have to do this and I have to do that. And I'm just going to hop from one thing to the next and just get through the day every day. And now it's like I wake up and I am excited to do my routine because I know that it's going to make me feel good. So even like taking my supplements in the morning, like it's all kind of paced out for me. And, I know that I'm going to get up, I'm going to have my coffee and journal and kind of just enjoy myself and everything. And I'll start work and I'll have breakfast. It all just flows so nicely. And I feel like I have so much control over it. Like, it's very deliberate. I do everything because I want to be doing it, instead of just feeling like, oh, I need to do this, I need to do this now. So yeah, I just feel like I have much more control over things, and it's coming from a desire to want to do it because I feel good doing it.
That's awesome. So, what would your journey look like if you never started this program, never pursued the holistic health path, and never changed anything about your life? What would the outcome of that have been?
Interesting question. Well, it's kind of crazy to actually go back in my mind and remember what it was like to be living my life, before I reached out and started the program, because I can look back and I can say, and I can know, oh, it was, I was not doing well, I was not happy, but I have these moments of remembering what it was actually like to be in that, and just how like hopeless I felt about my situation and my ability to do anything about it. I felt like life was happening to me in a lot of negative ways, and I was just desperate for a change. So I think if I had never started on this path, I might have still gotten out of the environmental, negative components of my life at the time, but it would have been really difficult. And I don't think that I would have the physical benefits that I have now in terms of like physical health. I think emotional and mental health, I would be significantly behind where I am, if not worse off than I had been. And I mean, in terms of what that even looks like, I was struggling to perform at my job. So, yeah, that's interesting. It's so valid. I think, yeah, I would be significantly worse off if I hadn't ever started this.
Gotcha. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much value did you get out of the program so far? Obviously, you're still in the program and you're going to continue, but so far.
Yeah, I would say being in it right now, I would say it's a 10. Not only do I feel like we've made so much progress, but, and there's a good chance in my mind that I wouldn't have been able to keep that job. Like, I would have lost that job. And then from there, it's hard to say kind of what would have come from that. Expressed this before. I like how we've worked also at a pace that I feel really positive about. And I think that's a really important thing too, where I don't feel like things are moving too fast for me. And, in that way, then is overwhelming. Like, it feels like it's a safe space to go at my pace, where you're also like really keeping me on track, holding me accountable, and like continuing to inspire me to keep moving forward.
That's awesome. Yeah. And we will always go to higher and higher levels. I learn new stuff all the time. I'm always researching, I'm always taking workshops, I'm always trying to improve myself so that so I can offer that to my clients too. I look back on when I first started this work. I remember people were like, oh, this is amazing. I'm so, but since then I'm doing 10 times more things, and there's so much more value I'm providing because I can see now all the ways that people need help. Whereas in the beginning, I only saw some things. And then as I progressed, I can offer more. And I know I will continue to increase. I have very, very, very lofty goals, but it's all one step at a time. Step at a time. Yeah, we will continue. And like I said, my goal with you from the beginning was that because dance is a passion, it's got to be present somehow in your life. That music and that dance, that's just part of your core identity. It has to be expressed. It will, if you're healthy, it will naturally express because that's the natural part of who you are. So obviously now you're an adult, you have lots of other goals, but they can all mesh together because they're all coming from the genuine you. So they must all work together, right?
Yeah. And I think that the dance thing is really significant too. Like, I think that was like the thing that made me feel like, yes, I'm going to do this, because I've spent so much of my life without dance, but specifically thinking that it was impossible for me to have dance again. And this was the first time that someone was like, well, no, you can definitely have dance again. And not only say that and mean it, but like believe it so strongly that, it like made me believe it again. And yeah, this was the first time that somebody like put that faith that I could have dance again back in front of me. So
Awesome. I love that. So what would you say to someone who has never done holistic anything? They may have never done fitness. I've had some of those clients in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. They're doing fitness for the very first time. Maybe they have a plethora of autoimmune things. They're scared. Maybe someone told them holistic is bad. They don't even know what it is, but they already have a bad idea. What would you tell to someone who's curious and is hesitating to reach out and join a program?
well, one, I would definitely say just reach out. The worst thing that'll happen is you'll learn something. So I think there's absolutely nothing to be lost there, and a lot to be gained. But I would also say, like, I did not know much about holistic health at all before I reached out to you and started this program. And even beyond that, like, my profession and the way that I was raised was very much, oriented in Western medicine and in that system. And so it's been a really interesting and rewarding experience for me doing this program, because I've had the opportunity to unlearn a lot of things that were just drilled into me, and believing about, the medical system that we have now and what it can do and all of that. And not only not seeing the results that I wanted to see by going through that system, but in some ways getting worse off and just continuing to have like new ailments or, whatever it was, and just felt like I was on this treadmill. The program has been such an opportunity to really take my health into my own hands. I'm somebody who loves learning new things, especially about, health and medicine and the body and all of that. And so it's been, really cool in that sense. And so I think from the holistic health perspective, I'm coming from the opposite background, and did not believe a lot of the things that I feel like I know to be true now because I've experienced the health benefits of these things. So yeah, so on that front, I would definitely say there's only things to be gained here. And then in terms of the fitness front, I mean, our bodies need to move. They just need to move. And I have never enjoyed fitness, like going to fitness classes, because I've always felt pressure out there to perform at a certain level. And then I would feel ashamed if I couldn't, or something like that. And even just talking about fitness with you, it's really like there's a more holistic approach to it. It's less about performing and more about like experiencing and integrating the experience and the mental and the emotional experience. I mean, you talked about it as kind of this like moving meditation sort of thing. And so, yeah, it's a different and way more approachable way, I think, to think about fitness as just movement. And again, I think it's just a lot of unlearning, but so much to be gained. So I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely right. Yeah, I always try to explain to my clients that healing happens through movement. Like if someone is very severely overweight and they tell me, but I've done a lot of meditations and I just want to do the spiritual work, but I don't really want to do the fitness. Like then you're not going to heal fully because the body is also spiritual and the body heals through movement. Always. Healing can only happen in movement, like period, right? Whether it's mental movement, thoughts moving, energy moving, body moving. But if someone just wants to sit and meditate for 10 years and heal that way, it's just not going to work. I'm really sorry to burst that bubble, but it's just not going to work. There has to be a movement that's hard, doing hard things, overcoming things. Physical labor is very therapeutic. Like the monks in the monasteries knew that too. They were always working. Yeah. So thank you so much for all this incredible information and sharing your story. And have an amazing rest of your day.
Thank you. Yeah, no, my pleasure.
Thank you so much. Okay. Bye.
Right, see ya.